good afternoon and welcome to the Trafford College Group Student Question Time event. My name is Alan Keegan, and first of all, before we begin the event, I'd like to introduce our host, the principal and the CEO of the Trafford College Group, Mr. James Scott.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you and welcome everybody to the Trafford College Group annual Question Time event. We've got an absolutely stellar lineup for you today, more than worthy of a BBC Question Time event. And for Trafford College Group, it's absolutely fantastic we've been able to get such a lineup today. But in a moment, Alan will be introducing our panelists for you, so I'll say no more on that at the moment. The Trafford College Group, I think most of you know, was formed in 2018, and it consists of Stockport College and Trafford College. The Question Time event has been an annual highlight for the college for many years, and was something at Stockport College that has been inherited by Trafford College Group since our formation. It's a great opportunity for young people to have their say about the issues that matter to them. Last year, we held the event at Stockport Town Hall, and this year, holding it at Trafford College, but obviously in a very different way, with many of our participants taking part through virtual means and a small number of us here at Trafford College. What I'd like to do to start with is just introduce a number of VIPs who have joined us through the virtual event, who are joining the staff and students of the college. We have Andrew Gwynn, the MP for Denton and Reddish, Nivendu Mishra, the MP for Stockport. The Mayor of Stockport, Dean Fitzpatrick, has joined us, as the Mayor of Trafford, Rob Chilton. In addition, we have a number of head teachers from local colleges and local high schools. Mr. Rainey, the head of St Ambrose College, Mr. Mohammed Ramzan, the principal of Cheadle and Marple Sixth Form College, and Mrs. Dorothy Trussell, the head of Flixton Girls' School. Thank you very much to you all for joining us. In addition to the students of Trafford and Stockport College, we also have students joining us from Flixton Girls High School, St Ambrose College, Cheadle and Marple College, and Aquinas College. So again, a warm welcome to students from all those schools and colleges. This event that we have annually is very much a celebration of Parliament Week. And throughout this week, across the Trafford College Group, we've been encouraging students to register to vote. As I said earlier, it's a well-established event, and last year's event at Stockport Town Hall included a range of questions by students on the issues that really mattered to them at the time, such as mental health, citizenship within the curriculum, hate crime, and many other issues. I suspect many of these issues will feature in today's questions, as well as many of the current concerns that face us presently. The event is also linked to your Make Your Mark campaign. And this week, students have been preparing questions in advance of this event as part of Make Your Mark. But most importantly, this is all about the importance of the democratic process and encouraging young people to have their say and have a voice. In terms of my own background, and some of you know this story from old, I grew up in a very political family. My grandmother was staunchly Conservative, and my father was staunchly Labour. And when he grew up, he used to put his Labour Party posters in the windows, much to my grandmother's consternation. But for me, I think what hit home the most was at 18 years old, when I had the opportunity to vote, I didn't. And my mother, being a very laid-back character for the most part, certainly made her feelings very well known when I didn't vote at 18. And many of you will have heard comments such as, you know, the rights to vote not being available to people, unfortunately, in parts of our globe. The importance of being able to use that vote and have your voice is so important. At the moment, clearly, there are many issues facing us, and students throughout the last few months have been really having their say in many different ways. Trafford College Group has a student leadership team, and it also has an Equalities Council and a Green Assembly. And those forums are very active during the recent pandemic and the lockdown since March, where they really came into their own to look at how they could support fellow students and families, including those who are most vulnerable in our society. It's that togetherness and that activism of our students that has really been a support throughout very, very difficult times. So I think that's all that I'd like to say at the moment. But once again, a warm welcome to everybody who has joined us, schools, colleges and elected representatives, because events like this are so important for our young people to speak and have dialogue with people in authority to talk about the things that matter to them. And as I said earlier, we have an absolutely stellar panel to hear the questions and respond to the questions of our students. And I'm going to hand back to Alan, who is now going to introduce our panel.
Thank you very much indeed, James. Well, as I said at the beginning, it's an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be here today. We have got a fantastic lineup. We've got some brilliant guests. We've got some wonderful questions. And we're going to try and cover a sort of fine selection of topics today, right across the board: discrimination, mental health, the environment, just to name a few. And as we say, let me introduce our panel, because it is, to quote the CEO and the principal of the Trafford College Group, a stellar lineup indeed. So wherever in the world you're watching through Zoom or streaming, enjoy it, because this is a rarity. And it's also, if I might add, history in the making. This is a very unique opportunity for you, the student in particular, to engage and embrace what happens to be a wonderful event organised by the Trafford College Group. So without further ado, these are our VIP panel members. I'm delighted to say we have, for a certain length of time, Mr. Andy Burnham, very busy man at the moment, the Greater Manchester Mayor. We also have Sir Graham Brady, MP for Altrincham and Sale West and the chairman of the 1922 committee. Kate Green, MP for Stretford and currently the Shadow Secretary of State for Education. Linda Holt, Conservative Councillor for Bramhall North and Vice Chair of the Children and Families Scrutiny Committee. Daisy Dalton, student at the University Academy 92 and campaigner for student mental health support. Mohammed Abi, student ambassador for University Academy 92. Jemima Bedward, student leader for GCSE programme and member of Equalities Council. Keely Almager, course representative and new member of the Equalities Council. And I'm delighted to welcome from Trafford College, finally, last but by no means least, Michael Jarkowski. And it's with Michael that we're going to start with our first question. And then once we've asked the question, I will probably go and choose some of the panel members just to make it nice and easy for some of you. So we'll keep you on your toes. It is question time after all. So over to you with the first question, Michael.
Thank you. What impact has the pandemic had on young people's education? And should schools and colleges remain open during the current restrictions?
And I think it's only right that we go first and foremost to the Greater Manchester Mayor with that question, and the answer, Andy Burnham. Good afternoon, Andy.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for inviting me on to this. It's great to be with everybody, and you've got some high-profile MPs in the Trafford Borough, and it's great to see Graham and Kate here as well, and Linda. So to answer the question, obviously the impact on young people of the pandemic has been huge. I'm really conscious of that. I've asked Diane Medall to lead a young person's task force in Greater Manchester just to consider what more we need to do to support young people coming through this. So just to address the very difficult question of schools and colleges, of course they should stay open because they didn't close even in the first lockdown. I think it's really important to say that they were open for students whose parents were key workers. And young people who were identified as being more vulnerable. So that obviously would have to happen. See, the problem I have at the moment is that Greater Manchester has been stuck all year with a high number of cases, and we have what's called endemic transmission at the moment. And when I supported a circuit break, it was really a circuit break of the kind that we had earlier this year, which did succeed in getting the cases down. But having said that, I fully understand why, you know, a further period of school closure is or college closure is not going to be easy. The difficulty is, of course, is if we leave the cases high going into the winter, schools and colleges are going to be disrupted with people being sent home on a more random basis, which of course presents problems. So I suppose there's just no easy answer here. People will see this differently. I think people are all trying to balance the health of the population with the needs of our young people. I hope one area we can all agree, and I was talking to Kate about this earlier today, and certainly would want to work with Graham on this if possible. And Graham was a great support to us recently through our discussions on Tier 3. I don't think we can have exams at the end of this current year in the normal way for GCSEs and A-levels and vocational courses in the new year, because already there is plentiful evidence that young people in Greater Manchester have spent more time out of school and college than their counterparts in other parts of the country. Therefore, exams cannot be a sort of level playing field at the end of this year. So I just put the thought out there, shouldn't we all come together across all the political parties, all of the different areas of Greater Manchester, to back our young people in saying, look, I would hope the government would think about maybe a mixture approach where some exams, but also some assessment of the kind that we saw last year that solved the GCSE and A-level crisis. So, you know, that's what I would say is something that we need to think carefully about if we're trying to protect the interests of our young people, not just in the short term by keeping as many people in school or college as we can, but actually getting a fair exam system at the end of the year so that you don't have your lives unfairly disadvantaged by being out of school and college so much. So there's the answer to the question is, I probably would move to a system where we do have a temporary break in schools in terms of full attendance. I would say we should have more restricted attendance, but I absolutely appreciate other people may see this differently. So that will be my answer. If we could get everybody behind our call to change the end of year exams, I think that would be better for everybody in Greater Manchester. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Andy, and a very clear and concise reply there. We do appreciate it, and no pressure on the rest of the panelists, but that's a great start. So let's hope that we can keep the momentum. And I see Linda smiling there. So Linda, perhaps you'd like to join us and give us your response. Thank you. Welcome, by the way.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I do agree with Andy regards the exams and, taking it split with coursework. I mean, we know that the closure of schools has had the most damaging effect on most disadvantaged children, and parents perhaps were unable to homeschool. Their schools didn't have their own IT facilities to provide online lessons. Pupils didn't have IT resources at home to access any additional help from other resources. And I think children need to mix with their own age, to form these healthy friendships. That's the impact, I think, that it has when the schools are closed. And children were just slightly different, groups of children exposed to domestic abuse at home. They've probably had no refuge or a responsible adult to turn to, whilst the schools are closed. So I really think the schools must remain open at all costs. One thing I have thought about is perhaps, we should start regarding teachers, especially in secondary schools, as frontline workers like the NHS. I mean, to me, we've got to keep the teachers healthy and give them as much protection from the virus as possible with increased access to regular testing. This would avoid having to send home pupils because teachers are self-isolating or ill with the virus. And it would also protect a vital group of workers who deserve special protection, in my opinion. So these are my thoughts on school and the education as it is at the minute. Schools need to be kept open, but they have to abide by the COVID guidelines, obviously. We need one-way systems, we need the masks if need be, but I really think that the teachers should be given the same regard as the NHS frontline workers, because I really think they are key for our children and our education of the children going forward.
Thank you very much indeed, Linda Holt. What a fantastic response, and you've certainly raised the bar even higher, Linda. Thank you. It's really a round of applause there. Thank you, Linda. Now, we'd like to hear the voice of the students, and of course, no pressure, Keely, but I'm going to start with you to give us a response as well. Thank you.
So I think that schools and colleges should stay open as long as possible, because for some children, going to school and college is like a security and safety net, because at home they could be going through all sorts of stuff, and they can go to school or a college to rely on a teacher to talk to them. Or for also children, that meal that they have at school could be the one and only hot meal that they have a day. And if they're not going to school, then they're not receiving that meal, are they? So, yeah. And COVID-19 has already affected so many children. Like myself, we weren't allowed to take our exams. We were given results, and hopefully it's not going to change for a while, is it? So we just need to do it in a way where the children have a way where they can still talk to the teachers outside, like colleges are doing now. You can email your teachers. So if it's a parent that can email for the child, or just a way that the children can still be safe and have a way to talk to people. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to say welcome and good afternoon to Sir Graham Brady. Good afternoon, Sir Graham.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Afternoon.
We've had some fine answers up to now, Sir Graham. What's your response?
Well, I agree, first of all, with everybody who said it's really important that schools and colleges should stay open. And I think Daisy's point there was a really important one. We all hope that we're going to have a very effective, very safe vaccine in the very near future, but we might not have. It might take a bit longer. It might not be entirely effective. So I think one of the important common sense things we've got to do is recognise we might have to find a way of living safely with COVID-19 for months, possibly even for years. And the damage that's done to children and young people by being excluded from school and college is enormous. And it's both educational damage, and we've seen a lot of children falling 8 months or a year behind in their schooling, and that's very bad and can have a lasting effect on their prospects in the future. But at least as important, I think, is the effect that it has on people's social development and their mental health. And again, Daisy was referring to some of the difficult circumstances that lots of children have at home, and school and college can be a refuge from that. But I think also just that normal human interaction is very important for all of us, but perhaps especially important for children and teenagers, and at an important stage of their development as people. So I think it's critically important that we do keep schools open. And I just say one other thing, which is the reference that Andy made to schools having been open for key workers. You know, I think that was a very important thing, so that key workers could do their important jobs. But it's also a problem that what they were getting was childcare, not full schooling. So in some ways, you had key workers' children going to school for childcare, and then you had some children who were going to schools which were able to offer them a very good online teaching experience, who were pretty much keeping up with the curriculum, and some children who were getting less good online experience, or very little. So this gap that was allowed to open up in all sorts of different ways between different types of children from different family backgrounds, whether they had key worker parents or different, and also depending on the school and whether it was able to offer the best level of online teaching. So we've got to get people into school, we've got to do it as safely as possible, and I think that's the way to keep young people sane and make sure that they carry on their development in all the ways that are so important.
Thank you very much indeed, Sir Graham Brady. Thank you. I think we'd like to actually hear from Daisy and see what her opinion is, and we'll have a loud word from her. Daisy, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I think that if schools were to close, it'd have a detrimental effect on both academic attainment and the well-being of students. The likelihood is that already existing inequalities between students are now going to widen, which is going to increase the number of students and families seeking help. As I'm sure you know, as already stated, for some children, their only hot meal of the day may be the one they have in school. And school and college days really shape an individual. You learn who you are whilst you're in primary school, secondary school and college. They play an important role in supporting young people with their mental and physical health, as well as providing stability, routine and consistency to many young people. They provide protective factors for children as well. I think that they should stay open. However, their main priority should be protecting students' mental health rather than pushing them through exams that they're definitely not going to be fairly prepared for. It is estimated that 1 young people have a diagnosable mental health condition, which roughly equates to about 3 children in every classroom, according to the NHS website. And children really deserve to be protected. The closure of schools to most students creates uncertainty, both in the short term and in relation to then their education and employment outcomes in the future. For young people who are living in difficult or dangerous situations, the closures may also represent the loss of a safe and stable environment. All children have a right to continuity of education, and that is the responsibility of the school, not their parents. Many parents have been reluctant to force their child to prioritise academic progress at this time of heightened stress. It is therefore vital that there is a flexibility in the curriculum in the short and medium term, and that the clear message to all schools is that well-being must be their priority. Provided schools are as COVID compliant as they can be, I think the best option for students and their families is for schools, colleges and universities to stay open.
Thank you. Well done, Daisy. I think we've had the voice of the students, but we'll just move along, and I'd like to hear what the opinion and the thoughts are of Kate Green, if that's okay. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and hello everybody. And I think there's pretty well unanimity that schools and colleges must stay open and students must be in class and keeping up with their studies. And we've heard all the reasons why, the importance for their learning and for their socio-emotional well-being. But there are a number of things that I think need to happen to help schools and colleges stay open and welcome everyone safely. First of all, Linda talked about the importance of treating teachers, and in fact I think also support staff as key workers, and having access to rapid, reliable testing, to which I'd also add the students need to have access to rapid and reliable testing. And that's why we've called in the Labour Party for a 24-hour turnaround in those tests for students, for young people in school and college, so that if there's a risk that they might have been in contact with someone who's been infected, we can find out very quickly if they too are infected and get them back into class if it's safe for them to be there. Secondly, as we've heard, schools and colleges have made great efforts to make their premises COVID secure, to make sure that people can socially distance, to acquire the PPE they need where that's appropriate, to stagger lunch breaks and start times and so on. But that's costing money. A lot of money. For colleges, perhaps nearly £500,000 on COVID secure measures. For schools, they were given an initial £75,000 by the government, but it's not enough. So schools and colleges have to have the resources they need to make their premises COVID secure. And that does mean also, in many cases, being able to get extra staff to cover when other staff might be absent because they're having to isolate. Third, sometimes some students will need to study at home, and they need to have access to all the digital resources they need to do that. I'm really concerned to hear that some students are having to study on their mobile phones. That's not any way for anyone to be learning. Others can't afford the data packages or are having to share the one laptop in the household with siblings and perhaps with a parent who's working at home as well. We have to make sure that we've got proper digital access for every student to be able to study at home if they're not able to be in class. Fourth, we discovered the other day that when schools ring up to get advice on how they should manage a fear that there might be infection in the school or somebody might be COVID positive, they don't talk necessarily to good public health professionals on the ground locally. They talk to Serco, a private company working to a tick list. That's not good enough. We want proper local expert public health support for schools to take difficult decisions about who should be sent home to isolate and when that needs to happen. And finally, I agree so much with what Linda and Daisy were saying about mental well-being. Mental well-being for students and for staff, because what we're going through now is incredibly stressful for everyone in our schools and colleges. It's absolutely right that it needs to be given top priority. It's what parents are saying is most important to them. It's what students are saying. And when I listen to teachers and heads and principals in my constituency, I can tell just how exhausted and pressured they have been over the last few months, working flat out to make their schools COVID secure and keep everyone safe and learning. So it's absolutely right that we need to make sure that our mental health services are fully there for everybody who needs them, that we have a really good attention to wellbeing right across the education system, and that everyone can access support when they need it.
Thank you very much indeed, Linda. Linda Holt there, some very clear and concise answers from the panel. We are going to move on, and I'm going to look at the second question on the agenda for today, and let's hope that the answers are as good as the first set that we set. In particular, I'd like to welcome our colleagues and students and friends from Cheadle and Marple College as well. In particular, Fatma Shami is going to ask this next question. Welcome, Fatma. Fatma, if you can hear me, you just need to put your volume up, please, if that's okay. On your microphone, just turn it up there. You're looking good, but we can't hear you. So we can see you clearly. Just take a few seconds, you're okay. No, keep counting 1 to 10 and put your volume up on your laptop. Keep counting, keep talking. We'll get with you eventually. Well done. Keep going, Fatma. You're okay. Press it on and off, both on your laptop and on your headphone controller as well. No, I'll let you know. I'll give you a big thumbs up when we can hear you. You're doing okay. Don't worry. You'll get there. Don't worry. We'll give you a couple more seconds. If you've got a problem, Fatma, we will come back to you and we'll move on to our next question because I'm eager to get Andy back on board again. Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll move on to the next question, Fatma, while you have a little look at the sound and we'll come back to you after we've asked the next question. Is that okay with you? Give me a thumbs up. Fantastic. Okay, so this time we're going to go to Flixton High School for Girls. Welcome to them. We hope you're enjoying the experience. And in particular, I'd like to say hello to Olivia Houston. Welcome, Olivia. You'll have to turn your volume up as well. In fact, can everybody who's on the panel make sure that your volume is turned up and we can hear you clearly. Visually, we can see you. You're looking fantastic. Say hello. Count. Yeah. We heard some laughing then. Keep speaking to us, Olivia. Count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we'll get you up. There's something there in the background. Keep testing it. Lots of nice smiles. This is a live stream, the beauty of technology. Don't worry. Can you hear us? Flixton High School, are you there? We can't hear you. So have a little play with the volume buttons. We're trying at this end as well. One more last go. I might just look at Fatima to see if we've got a thumbs up from her as the volume's sorted with her. Are you there, Fatima? Fatma, I beg your pardon? It's live. These things happen, don't they? It's a live stream. It makes it more exciting for us. Okay, we'll give it one more go with Flixton High School. We can hear you. Oh, I like this. It still goes down to the old pen and paper, doesn't it? You know, you can have modern technology. Oh, who was that? We heard a sound then. Was that Olivia or was that our other friend? We're just checking out. So we'll let them have a go. Fatma, do you want one more go? One more go with the volume. We can't hear Cheadle and Marple and we can't hear Flixton. I love the way we get into modern technology of a sign held up. It's like
it's not a good advert for Digital Greater Manchester. This is it. The mayor needs to do something about this. I think.
I'll say.
Thank you for that, Andy. Thank you for that.
Remote learning, it's the way ahead.
I'll remember the next time I'm chairing your panel, Andy. Thank you very much. Okay, last chance, last opportunity. Fatma, are you with us?
Can you hear me any better? Okay, so I have two devices on right now, so I can hear an echo.
Just turn your volume down a little. Not a lot.
Yeah. So my question is, due to increased levels of unemployment because of the pandemic, we are looking at increasing levels of child poverty regionally. How does local and national government plan to prioritise this issue?
Oh, Andy, this has got your name written all over it.
And it's gone.
It does. Thanks, Fatma. It's great to hear you eventually all the way from Marple. It's a massive issue, obviously, and it gets a bit tougher, doesn't it, as we go more and more into this situation that we're all living through. I mean, I bet we're not all Manchester United fans on this call, are we? I'm certainly not. I have to admit that. I can see a nod or two there. Most of you will be in Trafford College, but hasn't Marcus Rashford just led the way for everybody through this? I think so, in terms of speaking for people whose voices are often not heard, and the challenges that they face day to day, just with the basics. And I feel that it's incumbent on all of us, at every level of politics, to really focus with the reality of people's lives, and particularly the real lives of some kids in Greater Manchester and the struggles they face every single day, just to meet their basic needs. So I can only speak from our point of view with regard to Greater Manchester. We are very conscious of the need to do what we can within the resources we've got. So we are going to launch a No Child Goes Hungry campaign. And I've told Marcus this, that we want to be the place in the country that puts his vision fully into being, so that he can kind of say, well, look, my home area is doing everything, and then encourage other parts of the country to do the same. We are wealthy enough to ensure that every single day everyone is properly fed, and it's as simple as that. So we've just got to find ways of making that happen. And it's not all about public money and the government paying for everything. It is about our wonderful businesses that we've got, who are, in Trafford, Kellogg's, for instance, they support Fair Share, who are doing so much to support Marcus in what he's doing. So we're working on that. That's one of the things that we're doing. I am, come what may, going to defend my R pass for our 16 to 18-year-olds, which is the free bus travel that we introduced. And even though it's difficult, we've just extended it to age 21 for young people leaving care in Greater Manchester. Again, it's not solving everything for everybody, but it's just a sign that we are, doing what we can. And just lastly, I think what Daisy's doing is just absolutely brilliant. And I think we have to recognise that for most of us on the panel of the age that Graham, Linda and Kate are, and myself, we grew up, I think, in a time which was less stressful and more secure. And young people growing up now do not live in that same environment. Therefore, investment in mental health has to come up the priority list. And I think there is more we can do, because obviously poverty causes loss of mental well-being, a loss of security. I think we need to do a lot more to prioritise children and young people's mental health within the health service, but also create new ways of accessing those services through digital platforms. And we've done a little bit of that this year, actually, through the pandemic. So, Fatma, it's a brilliant question. Some of what I said probably doesn't sound enough to the scale of the challenge, but you've got to start where you can. And just those things I would point to: No Child Goes Hungry, expanding our RPass, and investing in children and young people's mental health is what we're trying to do in Greater Manchester to support young people through this challenging time.
Thank you very much indeed, Andy. And of course, it could be said we've had an exclusive this afternoon. So thank you for announcing that, because we wish you well with the scheme and with the project, and I'm sure it'll be a big success. You've pioneered and worked very hard, and we're all very appreciative of that. So thank you, Andy. I know you are going to be leaving us shortly as well, so thank you for your time and thank you for joining us here today. It is immensely appreciated. Thank you. We're now going to move and hear the voice of the students, and I'd like to begin with Abs. Good afternoon, Abs.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me well?
We can. You're looking good and sounding good, Abs.
So, echoing what Andy said, Marcus Rashford created this campaign because I personally feel like no one in government, regionally or nationally, did prioritise child poverty at its finest. I myself was on free school meals when I was a kid, and it benefited me a lot. And since the pandemic came in, you see a lot of mothers and families who are struggling financially due to COVID, and they can't feed themselves and feed the kids. They're struggling financially. And I feel like if it wasn't for Marcus Rashford starting off this campaign, I feel like the child poverty would not be a big taboo as it is now. I feel like he started off regionally, he started off in Withenshaw, and it grew nationally. And a lot of brands, for example, Burberry, have gotten on board, show the importance of child poverty. And I feel like for me, it affects mental health, not just on the child, on the parents as well. Financially, they're getting into debt, they're missing out on their nutritional values. So I feel like since Marcus Rashford and since other, like Fair Share, for example, have gotten involved, he used his personal experiences and said, you know what? I was once on free school meals. I depended on a free lunch, and just getting a free lunch will help you in your education, help you focus more instead of being hungry. And I feel like at the moment, I don't believe the government are prioritising child poverty at its highest level. I think to them it's very low, in my opinion, because a lot of them have voted against it due to the fact that it wasn't important, which contradicts what everyone else was saying.
Thank you. Well done. Just before we move on, and I'd like to hear the opinion of Sir Graham Brady, can I please ask you all as well, both watching and here in the room, if you could use Twitter, the feed, and make sure that you're putting it out there on social media. I know that the team here are doing a fantastic job. And also don't forget, to anybody on the panel, if you want to use the chat box as well, perhaps when we go to our next link, then feel free to use that as well. But please tweet while you're listening. Sir Graham, thank you for joining us again.
Pleasure to be here still. Yeah, I just wanted to come back at that point that Abs was making, because I think it's very easy sometimes with social media campaigns to be persuaded that people are doing something that they're not. And I think the reference to people voting against free school meals simply isn't what happened. There was a vote on a very particular motion that had been tabled by the opposition. These are what are called opposition day debates. They don't have any effect. They're debates, they're declaratory things. And there was an amendment to it, which was tabled by the government, which put the government side of the case. And what happened is a very boring procedural point, but because you vote first on the motion from the opposition, and that had been defeated, effectively the amendment was carried, but we didn't have a vote on that. So instead of getting the story that we voted for something, pointing out that this government has extended free school meals to more children than any previous government, we've given them to all 5, 6 and 7-year-olds, which hadn't been done previously. We get this story about people voting against free school meals. So I think it's just important to question some of these things and be wary when there's a political angle that people not, of course, politicians always do that, but it's important to be aware of it. I say Marcus Rashford, I think he is a great example because what he's, and here talking about Parliament Week, he is a great example of a young person, a very successful young person who doesn't need to get involved in these things, but who has demonstrated that he really cares. And he's been very effective in raising the profile of an issue. And I think earlier in the year, when he campaigned on free school meals being extended into times when children weren't at school, it was, of course, something that a lot of people hadn't thought about, because we were in a very new situation when schools had suddenly closed down in what was normally term time. So the problem then was that lots of children who were normally going to be getting free school meals because they would be at school were suddenly at home. And whilst the government had increased the benefits that were available to help with that situation. There was a very particular thing that could be dealt with, and that was through giving the free school meal vouchers. But also, I was just going to say this, it's not a new issue. We've been dealing with, obviously, with children living in low-income households for a long time. There are all sorts of ways you can deal with that. One, of course, is through increasing the benefits available, but also for people who are in low-income work, increasing the level of wages, which has been done quite steadily in recent years as well. And I'd also just mention, because I was involved in it a couple of years ago, the then Labour MP, Frank Field, who is a very great man in my view, a very sensible chap, he got in touch with me saying, we've now got this so-called sugar tax. Why don't we ask the government to, can you still hear me?
Yes, yes. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. I think it's at his end as well. How unfortunate. Well, we'll welcome Sir Graham back in a few moments, but that leads me very nicely.
Hello?
Hang on, is he back? No. Okay, that leads me very nicely to Jemima. Perhaps you'd like to jump on the back of that, Jemima,
Hello?
please. Welcome.
I found that looking at government policies on the issue, it's certainly hard to have hope for child poverty. I think personally, they said that in 2014 to 2017, child poverty was going to be gone by 2020, which it's drastically gone up, I think. And I think if we ask ourselves, without people like Marcus Rashford, where would we be in child poverty? Who's going to be pushing it forward if we don't have people like this to, rally for the cause? And I think it's definitely people keep mentioning Marcus Rashford, not the government. It's sad, really. And I think if we take a step back and look at what child poverty is doing to this country, we're all probably ashamed. I do think, though, however, the government have put things into place like furlough payments and food vouchers, which is brilliant, but it's not enough. That's my opinion.
No, it's valued opinion. Thank you. Kate Green, I can see you nodding there with approval on what we just heard.
Jemima's absolutely right. We were on target to reduce child poverty and with an ambition to eliminate it by 2020. But in the last few years, child poverty has risen sharply. There were 3.5 million children in poverty in this country 10 years ago, too many, but now it's 4.2 million. The situation's got significantly worse. And, these things don't happen by accident. It's about the decisions that politicians make. And Jemima is absolutely right. It's great what Marcus Rashford has done. As Jemima has said, and others have said, it's brought the public's attention to the scandal of child poverty. But it's not, in the end, Marcus Rashford's responsibility to sort this out. That's what we elect politicians to do. And the choices that they have made have brought us to this situation. The cuts to the benefits that support parents with the cost of bringing up their children, the freeze on benefits, the restriction on benefits for any family that has more than 2 children. Nobody 3 years ago, when they were having their 3rd child, expected that they'd be bringing a child up in the middle of a pandemic. Those families need to be protected. And if we allow children to grow up in poverty, we don't just damage their childhoods. We don't just leave them out of things that other children are able to do, the school trips, the visits, the ability to have the digital equipment for home study that we were talking about a moment ago, the chance to go on holiday and to meet friends and have them round for tea. We also blight the life chances of those children. We damage their educational outcomes, we damage their career prospects, we damage their physical and mental well-being in childhood and into adulthood. Child poverty is a scandal, and we are one of the richest countries in the world, even now in this pandemic, when we're having to spend a great deal of government money to protect jobs and keep businesses going as much as we can. We're still a very rich country. There's no excuse for 4.2 million children growing up poor in this country. It should be, exactly as we heard earlier, our top priority, and it's shameful that the government isn't making it that.
Thank you very much indeed. I think is Sir Graham back with us? Yes, yes. So Graham, I'm not sure if you heard any of that response there, but if you did, would you like to reply and add to it? Okay, well, that's fine. I know that Kate Green's always ready to jump in and help us out. So, Kate, would you like to reply to the question that was put there?
I think I just did reply.
Beg your pardon. I'm sorry. I'm juggling around here. Linda, I beg your pardon. Linda. Thank you. Always ready and prepared.
Yeah, I mean, I think most has been said here. I'll keep it brief. I agree. Marcus has done an absolutely fantastic job. What we must be saying, and I'm bringing this very much down to a local level. I'm a local councillor. We must ensure, and I feel that I must ensure, I'm on the children and young people's committees. I do my best to ensure that children from homes that are affected by unemployment, low wages, receive free school meals during the coming winter, and for how long this COVID lockdown and these situations carry on for. And to make sure, again, we keep coming back to this, that they have access to IT facilities at home so they can learn more effectively after school. And also, I would say free extra tuition after school for those children and young people with special needs or they've fallen behind during the lockdown. I think these things really need to be, put to the government very strongly. And I mean, I'm doing that locally. I'm doing my best locally. We're sending stuff down to government, expressing these views. And really, there is some good stuff going on. Don't get me wrong. There is some money coming through to local councils, but also the businesses locally are doing so much. I mean, Morrison's and people like this, they're being really good giving out all kinds of things for the communities locally. And I can only thank all these people that are doing that. We have groups in where I'm a councillor in Bramhall. We have a group of people called Helping Hands. They're doing their best. They're going around the streets. They're helping people. And this is what we need. But the government just need to put money in to these families that are affected by unemployment and low wages to make sure that no children goes hungry. I had not a privileged upbringing, but I had an upbringing where I was looked after and I never went hungry, and I would never want a child to go hungry in this country, and I don't think they should.
Thank you very much indeed, Linda Holtz. Absolutely excellent response there. And I want to say thank you to Fatma Shami. That was an absolutely brilliant question. And we do appreciate everybody from Cheadle and Marple College for joining us today. We're now going to move on, and hopefully we've got our friends from Flixton High School, in particular, Olivia Houston, and perhaps you might introduce the person who's with her. Good afternoon, Olivia. Welcome.
Hello.
We can hear you. Well done. Thank you. And who's your co-pilot?
This is Rebecca.
Hello,
Hi.
Rebecca. Welcome.
So my question is, how has COVID-19 changed the landscape in terms of homelessness crisis in Manchester?
That's a great question. And now that he's back with us, I'd like to ask Sir Graham perhaps to pick up on that. Thank you, Sir Graham. The pitch is not as good as it was, Sir Graham, but we can hear you.
Try. I think I had a bit of a Wi-Fi problem, so hopefully I'll be able to stay with you.
Thank you.
But of course, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
In many ways, it's part of.
Sir Graham, you're breaking up on us, Sir Graham.
About children going hungry. I think that I'll try turning off the video to see if that helps.
Okay.
Is that any clearer?
Yeah, carry on speaking.
Yeah. These problems, I think, are inevitably going to get worse. The more we continue to shut down the economy. And I think one of the reasons that I voted this week against this further lockdown, there were two principal reasons. One was that I was concerned that it's wrong to tell people in too much detail how to live their own private and family lives. The fact that the government's telling people they can't see their children or they can't visit elderly parents in care homes, all of those things. But the other side of it is the concern that even where you've got businesses that have done everything possible to keep their customers safe.
Oops, we've lost you again, Sir Graham. We'll give you a few more seconds. If not, you might have to move to another place in the house. Your conservatory is beautiful, but you might need to get near the router. So if you don't mind doing that for us, Sir Graham, I'm going to hand over and introduce Keely once again to jump on the back of that response. Thank you, Keely.
Yes, so the homelessness crisis is obviously very bad, and it's been going on for a while now. At the start of the pandemic, the government brought in a policy called Everybody In, where they tried to bring in everybody in off the streets, but it wasn't very effective because it didn't last for long. So it helped, but not for a while. So there's many reasons why people can become homeless, like family breakdowns, turning the age where they have to come out of care, and then they have nowhere to go. So I feel that people should, like the government and people of authority, should help this. So when a person comes out of care, they should have help or a person who helps them to get housed or have somewhere to go or anything like that. And family breakdowns, families who have problems at home should have counsellors or social workers to help and work with them so people don't become homeless, and especially young people. Yes, and there's a lot of charities that can help with homelessness, and anybody can do anything to help homeless people. So I can do something, you can do something, anybody can help. So if you feel like you can help someone, then just do it, really, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to join Daisy from AU92. Good afternoon again, Daisy. Your thoughts?
My thoughts on this were more Abs's question. Abs prepared this question, not me. So, Abs, want to answer that question?
Very good delegation there. Well done, Daisy. We don't mind, Abs. Come on, join us, Abs.
So I feel like for me, most recently, I've been reading about Councillor Luther Rahman, who's the lead member of homelessness at Manchester City Council, and he's trying to create a prevention rather than an intervention, so preventing people from becoming homeless. I feel like since COVID-19 has impacted a lot of people financially, a lot of people are relying on food banks, and a lot of people are not paying their rent on time. The rents are really high. They've got to pay the gas and electric with the keys, and I feel like for me, it's become a struggle for everybody. Although they're on furlough, it's not been enough, and I feel like a permanent solution needs to happen rather than just an intervention. All right, just go to this place, it'll be all right. We're going to prevent them from being homeless. So obviously, there's COVID-19 pandemic, there's total lockdown, but what's the government going to do to prevent this from happening? What support is there for some people who rely on housing benefits? In case the housing benefits have stopped suddenly just because of the pandemic and their wages, what's the government going to do to prevent that? Are they going to do some sort of leeway for the housing, just to make them more secure, because it can cause a lot of mental health problems as well. Being homeless, the financial worry of you being homeless, I feel like there should be a prevention rather than an intervention.
Thank you, Abs. Well spoken and well taken over there. That was absolutely fantastic. Linda, would you like to join us? Give us your thoughts. I can see you nodding when Abs is talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, homelessness in Manchester. I know Andy Burnham was you know, on this to try and eliminate all homelessness in Manchester. I know here in Stockport, we do go around regularly as a local council to look at the areas where homeless people might be, and we do keep a quite a height. You know, we do look at it very carefully. The thing is, there's so many complex issues that come into homelessness. You know, there's addictions, the different circumstances of people. You know, even the armed forces. You know, when they come out of the forces after fighting here, there, and everywhere, they have problems too. But we have put things in place locally in Stockport to help people in these situations. I mean, really. You know, we've got local places such as the Wellspring that you may have heard of, which does an extremely good job in Stockport to look after homeless people and make sure they get something to eat. And I think that's what we can do locally. We've got to keep things going locally because we know where these hot spots are, and we need to keep an eye on them and make sure that we do the best for anybody that's sleeping rough. It shouldn't be. But again, we're linking some of the. I say it's complex. We're linking this to some of the circumstances and to the mental health issues again, because a lot of that comes into to these circumstances of these people sleeping rough, and we need to get the underlying issues sorted as well to prevent this happening. That's what's going on underneath, and that's what we need to concentrate on. Mental issues, absolutely paramount to sort this out.
Thank you very much indeed, Linda. Well done. Thank you. And a great question once again from the Flixton High School for Girls and Olivia Houston, along with Rebecca there. We do appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. We are going to move on now because we have another question from our friends at St Ambrose College, and I'd like to welcome Dominic. Forgive me, Dominic, I'm often known for getting these names wrong in my pronunciation and announcements, but Bajanio. Turn your volume up, Dominic. We can see you.
I was trying to unmute there. Can you hear me properly?
We can hear you, yes. Dominic, welcome to the panel, and what's your question on behalf of St Ambrose College?
So my question is, it's more of a, do you agree that there should be a well-established system in place to offer effective support towards students at university struggling with their mental health, and in particular for those who might be self-isolating, and especially in light of the 8 students who have died from suicide this year since universities reopened?
Thank you for that opening question, Dominic, and I'd like to turn to Kate Green, if you don't mind, Kate, to respond to that question. Thank you.
Yes, really good question, Dominic. Thank you. And student mental health is a real issue and a real concern for parents, for students and for universities. And it's absolutely imperative that students have access to excellent mental health support when they need it, that they know how to access it. So there's really good information about where to go to get that support, that it's confidential so that they don't face any perceived stigma if they are seeking that support, and that it's given absolute priority. Universities have actually done a lot of work over the last 3 or 4 years around this with the National Union of Students, with the Universities UK and Russell Group, the groups of universities that work together with Public Health England and the NHS. So we're in a better place than we were in terms of strategies. But of course, as you say, the pressure during this COVID crisis, particularly for students who have been forced to isolate, perhaps in a flat with people they didn't know 2 months ago, and suddenly they're finding that they're confined in 24 hours a day with virtual strangers. Those pressures are very significant. So yeah, you're absolutely right. This needs to be a real priority for universities to look after their students.
Thank you very much indeed. I'd like to, please feel free. Thank you for that, Kate. I'd like to move and now invite Daisy once again, who I think will be more than happy to speak about this subject. Thank you, Daisy.
Yeah, so mental health is something that I'm very passionate about. It might not look like it, but I struggle massively with my mental health. I've been diagnosed with several mental health conditions. I counted down to my 2020 sat in A&E because of my mental health conditions. I couldn't agree more that there really needs to be a well-established system, not just for university students, but for all students alike. I'm really lucky because University Academy 92 has such a well-established mental health support team, but I shouldn't have to feel lucky. My health shouldn't be based on luck. It's everyone's right as a human being to protect their mental health, and I don't understand why it's only really being taken seriously now. I've suffered, like I said, with bad mental health for the past 4 or 5 years, but due to me having a supportive family and my high school and college taking such an active role with me improving my mental health, I've slowly managed to improve my health to a point where I'm comfortable on this camera speaking to you today, and I've even worked alongside a journalist and published an article about myself in the MEN and the struggle I've come through to be where I am today. Because I've been diagnosed with general depression, anxiety, seasonal affective disorder, and a lot of people don't realise with me, but I'm a very bubbly, happy person. I hide what I kind of feel inside a lot, and you can't see, but like my palms are so sweaty from having to talk to people like this and open up about myself. But there was a period of time where I had to self-isolate when I was in university, but my university reached out to me. They offered me virtual sessions. They told me about food banks in the area in case because in my job, you don't get sick pay. I work as a carer part-time, and I don't get sick pay if I go on leave. So I would have just gone without pay for 2 weeks. universities now more than ever should be treating each student as a person with thoughts and feelings and not just a figure or percentage. Universities are seriously responsible for maintaining the well-being of their students. I, as a student, do not pay £9,000 a year to be locked into my accommodation with no freedom. A university around Manchester locked their students into their accommodation very recently, and the mental have been catastrophic. We've already had our university experience significantly reduced and are already having to spend the vast majority of our days in our flats. But for those students to actually be caged into their accommodation blocks is like disgusting. Everyone has a legal right to break lockdown rules, which I don't think many students are told, because I think people believe that students will kind of abuse that. But it says on the government website that everybody, no matter who you are, has a legal right to break lockdown rules for your own health and safety. And universities have no grounds to threaten legal action or fine you for breaking lockdown restrictions, returning home or going somewhere where you feel safe if you are acting for your own mental health and well-being. Your mental health is more important than your rent, your mental health is more important than your grades, and your mental health is more important than a degree, and universities really need to realise that.
Well done, Daisy, thank you. Linda, would you like to join us again? Thank you, Linda.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Yeah, okay. I was just going to say, well said, Daisy, and we couldn't have a better ambassador to push this forward than yourself. Someone who's been through it and still going through it and knows exactly what is needed. It's fantastic that you've been able to step up and take on this role and really make people listen, because I'm certainly listening to you and I think you're doing a fabulous job. I think universities must provide more pastoral support for students experiencing stress in coping. First of all, we've been away from home. That's difficult in itself. Leaving home, meeting new people, as Kate said, you know, they've only known for a few weeks, getting into that situation, the restrictions of lockdown, you know, and I think perhaps some simple things to start off with, a programme of contacting students regularly by phone even, just to make sure that they're coping with the lockdown. You could get a group of people who could do this just to make sure that they're all right. And in some cases, you know, when some students need to return home because of mental health issues, I think they should receive some sort of reimbursement of the fees, quite honestly. I think that should come into it as well. You know, you're saying you're working part-time and when you're not well, you don't get the money. I understand that, Daisy, and I don't think that's right, but I understand that's the way the job is. But, you know, I think some reimbursement should be given if students have to return home because of mental health issues, and it must be extremely difficult for you. I understand that. Away from home and with all these restrictions, it's not a good situation. But Daisy, thank you for the work you're doing. I think you're fantastic.
Thank you very much indeed, Linda. Thank you. And I think we'll have the final word from our students again. And I'd like to ask Jemima.
I think it's strange that we live in a very contemporary world, especially I think in Western areas. But, you know, we have all this, people are, I think, encouraged that England's an amazing place to be. And the same with America, that they're just great places and amazing. But we still hold this huge stigma around mental health, the same as anywhere, I think. And I just think, how does this country expect university students and any student really, student and teachers alike as well, to not feel stress going back into, you know, work and going back to university and studying with a pandemic that's going around university, stressful enough as it is. You know, you've got all your degrees to do. It's not really what you want to be thinking about, is that this pandemic as well. And then you're getting all these new restrictions, which I think are against human rights, really, to say that you have to stay in your house and accommodation and not go out. It's awful. And I think it should be a necessity for universities to hold like a safe space for the students and even for the teachers, definitely. It needs to be put into action and it needs to be a priority. If there's more funding needs to go into this, it's so important. And I think that there's a current mental health crisis, definitely. And well, if we can help, we definitely should. And I think with all the funding that universities get, they really need to put it into this cause. It's extremely important, and especially considering the 8 deaths as well. That's really, I don't know, there's not really much things coming out. I don't think you get the deaths, but you don't really get people making massive changes. It's definitely students that are making the changes, not the people who run the universities, which is awful.
Thank you, Jemima. Thank you very much indeed. And again, to our friends at St Ambrose College, in particular, Dominic, thank you for a fantastic question. Really, really good. And thank you to the panel for the excellent responses. Very much appreciated here in the live audience that we have here, clapping with appreciation and lots of care and concern. We now move on, and I'd like to welcome our friends from Aquinas College, in particular, Emma Dunn. Good afternoon, Emma.
Good afternoon.
Oh, yes.
Hi.
There you are in the distance.
Yeah, that's me.
And welcome to your colleagues. You might as well give them a little name check as well before you ask the question. Who are with you there today? We can see two people.
This is Izzy and Katie.
Welcome everybody from Aquinas College. What's your question, please, Emma?
My question is, despite plans for Greater Manchester to be carbon free by 2038, 12 years earlier than the government's plan, Manchester Airport has previously been left out of our carbon emissions figures. How can we ever realistically become carbon free when we won't even acknowledge or restrict one of the biggest creators of pollution in our region?
Thank you for that question. And obviously, if Sir Graham was still with us, I would have put this one right into his plate, but he's not with us. So I feel it's got Kate Green's name written on it. Kate, if you could help us out here, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, this is something that Friends of the Earth Manchester have been campaigning on for some time, and they've suggested a number of measures which could be taken to reduce the climate impact of air travel, including, for example, air passenger duties, which are very unpopular, obviously, with the travel industry. And it is argued by the airport, for example, that many jobs at Manchester Airport depend on the volume of passengers. So there is a balance to be struck, but there's no doubt that there is very considerable concern about what more steps airlines and airports could take to reduce their climate footprint. Of course, right now it's not much of a problem. Manchester Airport is seeing hardly any flights at all. The airline industry is absolutely crippled by the COVID crisis, and it may be that it never really comes back to the sort of volumes we were seeing before the crisis. It may be that people's attitudes to international travel change, not least because, of course, travelling to the European Union may now not be as straightforward. So the casual weekend hopping over to European capitals for a short break may now not be on the agenda so much either. So I think we should really look at whether we can take this really dramatic change in circumstances, the COVID crisis, the Brexit situation, and redirect the way in which we think about air travel and the way in which we minimise the climate impact that it brings. But I would just say in Greater Manchester, yes, the airport is an issue. Yes, air travel is an issue. But the bigger payback in climate terms will actually come from dealing with road traffic, dealing with industrial emissions, and dealing with the way we heat our houses. And that's got to be a priority too for any proper environmental strategy for Greater Manchester. We have some of the most uneconomic energy-wise housing stock in the world. It's old, it's poor quality. We should be retrofitting it to bring it up to top quality environmental standards. We have an aging bus fleet that is emitting diesel fumes up and down our city roads, and we have diesel vans running around our roads and motorways. We need support for our bus sector, for our local minicab sector, and for small businesses in Greater Manchester to get rid of these polluting diesel vehicles and replace them with more environmentally efficient forms of transport. And we need, and we're beginning to see it, much better investment in walking and cycling infrastructure in Greater Manchester. And I want to pay great tribute to Chris Boardman, who's Andy Burnham's walking and cycling advisor, because in Trafford you can see some really exciting things going on now. I know there's been a lot of complaint about the cycle lanes in parts of Trafford, but really when you see other cities around Europe and what they can do to make cycling and walking the preferred option and not jumping in your car, we should be copying that. And so, yes, it's absolutely right to think about what we can do with the airport, but it's also important that we adopt a whole range of measures. And therefore, I'd just say finally that Andy Burnham does have a consultation out at the moment on all of this. In fact, I think he's got two, one on clean air and one on transport. And I'd really encourage anyone who's watching this event today to have a look on the Greater Manchester Combined Authority website and think about sending in your comments.
Thank you, Kate Green. Wonderful response. Thank you very much indeed, Kate. Very thorough indeed. Before we join Linda, I'd like to ask Michael, one of the students, to give us his overview. Good afternoon and welcome, Michael.
So, I mean, Kate gave a brilliant response. So I'm not sure if I'm going to quite reach the heights of that, but it is a really difficult question about whether we should continue with the level of flights we had before COVID, at least, because they do have significant impacts on carbon emissions. But I also think it is crucial to look at the economic impact of it. 1.5 billion pounds a year goes into the Northwest economy because of Manchester Airport, and that's 41,200 jobs, either directly or indirectly. So it's crucial for the jobs, the opportunity, the connectivity and the growth for the Northwest, which is already one of the most deprived regions of the UK. And we're already seeing the impacts that reduced amount of flights in Greater Manchester is having on places like Wythenshawe, which is where the bulk of Greater Manchester Airport's employees come from, and that's already a very deprived area. So banning our travel to different countries via flights may reduce carbon emissions, but it really has a negative impact on the economy. And it's important to remember, how do we tackle climate change? We need to have the money to be able to invest in sustainable solutions. And without the economic growth, we won't have that. So what instead? I think two key things. First of all, we do need to reduce the amount of flights we take. And to do this, we need to do two things, I think. First, infrastructure. It's not there in the UK in terms of rail, roads. If we invest in this kind of infrastructure, people will be more incentivized to take trips, maybe to France via train, because they know it's quick and it won't take very long. And also reduce prices. It's too expensive. The fact is that it could be cheaper to take a flight from Manchester to Paris than it is to take the Eurotunnel and trains. So that needs to be tackled. And I'd also say sustainable transports and airports is essential. We need to invest in sustainable fuel and ensure that Manchester Airport, which is a pretty sustainable airport actually, continues to make these investments to make them more sustainable. So maybe one day we reach a point where air travel isn't negative on the environment because fuel is completely green. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Michael. Linda, final word from you on this topic.
Yeah, just briefly, I do agree with Kate, what she was saying. I think it's all aspects of transport that we have to look at, and infrastructure. I mean, I do know that Manchester Airport does have plans to be carbon neutral. They are putting things in place and there is a plan there. I mean, a simple thing like they're planting more trees. But I remember when lockdown first happened and I was sat out in the garden and I've never seen such a clear sky before. It was beautiful and there was no cars on the road. It was brilliant. And hopefully, I mean, I think it is down to the airlines going forward. We need to look at the airlines, but I think it's going to be 4 or 5 years before we're back where we were. So I think, you know, they're in a bit of a benefit situation now through COVID in a very strange way. It's funny how things happen. You know, every cloud has a silver lining. And I just think that, you know, I just think that Manchester Airport, I do go to meetings at Manchester Airport and they are doing their best there to do their best to make themselves more carbon neutral. So we'll just have to keep on, I don't know, keep on plowing away and trying to make it better, trying to make the infrastructure better and travel better in Greater Manchester and the rest of the country. That's all we can do.
Thank you very much indeed, Linda Holt, and very, very good answer indeed. Thank you again to Aquinas College, and thank you for your time and patience waiting, in particular Emma Dunn. That was a fantastic question and we do appreciate it. Now we're going to move to Stockport College, and welcome to everybody from Stockport College, and in particular Uzwa Syed. Good afternoon, Uzwa.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, and thank you for waiting patiently. What is your question?
Today, I'm going to ask that polarizing views about race have become more prominent in recent years. In what ways should the government respond to this?
Okay, very interesting subject. And I'm not going to go to one of our VIP panel members. I'm going to go to a student who's also VIP, Abs, who's made a big impression this afternoon. So Abs, we'd like to start with you if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I feel like, especially what's going on around the world, and especially most recently, the sad killing of George Floyd, which shocked the world, and there's been mass protests around the world, like the BLM, and an outcry for what's been going on. But I would like to think that who actually represents us in the government? Like, when I look at the government, do I see people who represent me No. And it's about creating awareness in a diverse parliament or House of Commons, diverse government, so someone can represent you. When I look at the government, I only see three people who really represent me: Diane Abbott and David Lammy. And for me, it's about being more diverse. And I think the government should be more diverse and ask young people or other people from different ethnic minority backgrounds what they would like to see, what are they struggling, instead of someone in a suit deciding what is going on, like what discrimination is. And I personally feel like at the moment I don't feel represented, but I'd like to ask the students, do you feel represented in the government?
I'm sure they'll vote in the future, Abs, with that question. But thank you. We're getting nods and different thumbs up here, but very, very clear and concise. And you're very passionate, Abs. Is that the end of your statement?
Yeah.
We've got the message. Give Abs a round
of
applause.
Sorry.
Well done,
create
Abs.
a large awareness of how discrimination impacts students as well.
Say that again, Abs.
Just to create a large awareness of how discrimination impacts students as well.
Well, it's great because actually at the beginning of this event, I was asked about the impact of this event, and I think it's absolutely amazing that we've got all these colleges involved in this event today. And, you know, I think it'd be fair to say that you are the future, and I think it's great that we've got so much involvement, and it's great to see you so vocal and not afraid to stand up, and please continue with that. You know, you've got a voice, and it's nice to see that we've got the Trafford College Group promoting that and endorsing it, which is a credit to everybody who's involved in that, and probably starts at the top and works its way down through staff and colleagues and students, which is amazing. So keep going with that. And talking to the students, I'd like to call upon Jemima to give us her view as well. Thank you, Jemima.
So I actually found this quite a hard question to answer, but I was looking online and stuff. And I found out actually that the Equalities Act was only put into place in 2010, which I think is really shocking. It's only been 10 years from today. Like, it's 10 years, which is such a short period of time. Things aren't moving fast enough, in my opinion. I don't think for anybody who's a diversity at all. And I think the government needs to move faster, definitely. And because things like the Equalities Act, again, are just basic human rights. But going to what Ab said, I think that the government use people of different diversities to sort of be like, yeah, we are inclusive, we're being inclusive. It's sort of a pass card. It's like, oh yeah, I have a black best friend, you know what I mean? So I'm not racist, but I just think they use it so people feel included when really they're not. And I think the UK is still massively segregated due to institutionalized racism, and people will never go to university just because of the color of the skin, which is again systematic racism and oppression. And I think the government needs to encourage more education to let students and people everywhere understand their similarities and not their differences, because the world focuses on people's differences instead of the similarities, and we're all very much the same.
Thank you very much, Jemima. Kate Green.
So here are some things the government could do. It could stop carrying out endless reviews and start taking some action. First of all, it could listen to the Black curriculum campaigners and embed Black history and educate every aspect of our education system, embed information and education about all the cultures and histories that go to make up our United Kingdom, and stop just teaching parts of our historical record through the lens of our colonial past. And don't just think this is a history part of the syllabus, it's in every part of the syllabus. What Black scientists or science teachers talking about when they're describing new discoveries? What musicians from different cultures and ethnic backgrounds are being taught in music lessons? What different ethnic backgrounds of different painters are being presented in art classes, and so on. So take on board the call of the Black curriculum campaign and embed Black history and culture in every aspect of our school and college curriculum. Second, pay audits. We have mandatory pay audits to try to close the gap in salaries between women and men. We need them to also monitor the gap in salaries of people from different ethnic minority backgrounds. The government could bring that in. It would need to legislate. It should do so. And third, I really agree about the point that, you know, we are all the same, but there is systemic discrimination and abuse, and it happens all over society. It happens in relation to stop and search. It happens in relation to the terrible COVID outcomes that have been suffered by Asian and ethnic minority key workers compared to the population as a whole. We have to be absolutely determined that we will take action to eliminate all those discriminatory injustices and ensure that everybody has equal access to the care and protection of our laws and our public services. And that isn't the case today. And it's for every public institution to examine itself and its policies and practices, as was called upon, not just 10 years ago when we got the Equality Act, but 20 years ago when we had the Macpherson report following the Stephen Lawrence murder, and address institutional racism, which still exists in far too many parts of our society.
Absolutely fantastic response, and thank you very much indeed again, Kate. Linda, I think I'll give you the final word on this, and then we'll have our final question.
Yeah, again, I just agree with what Kate was saying there, and really, you know, we talk about people being equal, but in reality, that people are not always equal. And I think what we've just got to do is just to introduce more diversity into all our organisations, public bodies, you know, BBC, local government. I mean, I think it'd be wonderful if some of you students would start on the political route, especially in Stockport. We could do with more diversity on our council. I mean, we've got quite a lot of women, which has been quite a struggle since the early years, from one woman being on the council in the year 1910. We've got more women now on Stockport Council than men. So, but I think we need more ethnic people, and diversity on our local councils. You know, some of you young people need to come through. We need younger people, and I think, as I say, we all have to play a part. At the end of the day, we all have to be respectful to one another, and it's education. When I was mayor a couple of years ago, I was still learning. I visited all kinds of different cultures, and there were still things I was learning. And you know, you need to learn about the different cultures and understand them. That's what it's all about, and to educate people so they don't just think, you know, that particular culture is this, that, or the other. They need to know about it and learn about it and take it on board. But everybody, every individual has a responsibility to be respectful to another individual. You're not put on this earth to be treated in any awful way by any other person. I don't think so anyway. It's down to the individual.
Thank you very much indeed, Linda. Very good overview, and a great question from Stockport College, and thank you to Uswa Syed. It's very much appreciated. I think we're nearly on for our final question, so apologies if you've been watching and you've not got involved as such, but we hope you've enjoyed it nonetheless. But we're going to stay with our friends at Stockport College, and we've got a great question to round off this particular event from Kajia Ansar. Good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you. My question is, our region have described an increased report of domestic abuse. What additional support is there for young people and children who either experience it or witness it?
Thank you. A really good question from our friends at Stockport College. Domestic abuse, very high on the agenda, particularly with lockdown. And perhaps I could call Linda back in to start off the answers for this one, Linda.
Yeah, I think that's it. You're right. All regions have reported increase in domestic abuse. In Stockport, you see, I keep bringing things down local because I'm a local council at the end of the day. And in Stockport, we have lots of different systems to help people in these situations. You know, we have Stockport Without Abuse that can be contacted. We have the MASH, the multi-agency support hub, which you know, people can log into. We have various websites, phone numbers available to call. And, you know, there's always local Samaritans as well, people like that we can call. But these things need to really come down locally because we know where these things are happening. And that's the only thing we can do is to make sure that we've got the systems in place locally to deal and help with victims of abuse, you know, so that people are not in any danger. Obviously, lockdown must have caused a lot of friction in households. And I just hope that, you know, the agencies that we've got there, that are out there already to support people, that people use them and they come to us and they're not afraid to come to us so that we can help and make the situation better.
Thank you very much indeed. Nice round of applause for Linda there. Always, we can always rely on you, Linda, for a very clear and concise answer. Thank you very much for that. Talking of which, it leads me very nicely to Daisy, who we can also rely on for a clear and concise reply. Thank you, Daisy.
Yeah. No problem. So domestic abuse is obviously defined as an incident or pattern of incidents of controlling, coercive, threatening, degrading and violent behaviour, including sexual violence. It can also include financial or economic abuse, harassment, stalking and or online and digital abuse. In the majority of cases, it's by a partner. But I feel like more people need to be able to spot the signs of domestic abuse, because I, now looking back, was in a very controlling relationship when I was only 17, and that has changed my whole view on men and what is a healthy relationship and what isn't at 17 years old. Like, I've not even lived my life yet I've been controlled in a way that my whole mindset's changed, and I now don't trust people because of that. It's even little things like people trying to go through your phone all the time and reading your text messages and like constantly having to know where you are. It's just, people just need to become more aware of it. And I think it's really important that teachers are trained on like understanding the signs, because it could be little signs of like domestic abuse. It doesn't always have to be the bruises or a broken arm or anything like that. It can be little things like people shying away and people flinching if you make a sudden movement near them and things. And I think it's just really important for teachers to, and people in like universities, to be able to spot the signs. There are many like services and help. There's a lot of help out there. There's the Bright Sky app. There's also several different helplines for specific circumstances. So there's a helpline for specifically for men. There's a helpline for the LGBTQ plus community. There's a helpline specifically for Asian women that provides advice, information and supports them and their children fleeing domestic abuse and or forced marriages. There's a helpline out there for everyone. Even if you ring 999 and you can't talk, the 999 handlers are trained to listen for that, and if you can cough in a response to what they're asking you, or there's a textbook if you're trying to order a pizza. If you ring from a landline, then police can always find your location from a landline, not necessarily from a mobile. But if you ring from a landline, they can find a location. And I think it's very important that young people and adults alike know things like this, because until I really delved in deep and looked into it, I didn't realise there was as much help as there was. There's text services, there's live web chats, and there's even a website that I went on that if you're on the website, as all the time that you're on the website, you can click this button and it will take you straight off the website to the BBC homepage in case somebody's watching what you're doing. You know, there's so many support networks out there that people need to be made aware of. And I think it's really important that in schools and colleges and universities that something is said. We need to be taught about this, because if you're not taught, nobody's ever going to know and nobody's ever going to understand.
Excellent. Thank you, Daisy. Kate Green.
Yeah, just picking up where Daisy just finished about what we need to do in schools, and actually with quite young children. I've been pretty shocked to discover that both girls and boys in their early teens actually think that men controlling women, men insisting on sex, men wanting to know where they're going to go, friends, men, as Daisy says, looking at women's phones, that's acceptable behaviour. It isn't. And we need to make sure that at a very early stage in our schools, we're educating young people on respect and dignity within relationships. And that's an absolute priority for addressing this sort of the roots of some of this problem. But the immediate pressure is to keep families safe now, and particularly in the pandemic, where particularly if you're locked down, it's harder perhaps to get away, although I'm pleased that the regulations were changed quite quickly, exactly as Daisy was saying earlier, so you can leave home in an abusive relationship if you need to. You don't have to stay locked down if you're in danger. I think it's also, though, a financial problem for a lot of women to escape an abusive relationship. It's not helpful, for example, that universal credit payments are only paid to one bank account in a household. It means often a woman won't have her own financial resources to be able to get away from an abusive relationship. And financial independence is a really important part of having the ability to escape domestic abuse if it's happening to you. And it's really important that the services that are available for those fleeing abuse and violence are properly funded, properly resourced. As Linda says, demand has been rising after we came out of the first lockdown, and those services are facing tremendous pressures. It needs to be an absolute priority that the government makes sure that they are, local councils are supported and resourced to continue those services, because those services save lives.
Yeah, they do.
Thank you very much, Kate. And perhaps it's fitting that we have the final word from one of our students. Thank you again, Keely.
Yeah, so like everyone has already said, there's lots of helplines out there that you can easily access from online and everything. But what I think is that there should be a lot more of awareness of the help that is out there, because some people maybe don't know that there is help out there. So maybe like leaflets being handed out, posters on lampposts and stuff like that of numbers, and in hairdressers and places where you go a lot of the time, you can see if you see a poster on the wall, you can get the number, or you can also speak to your hairdresser, because you can confide in them, because you can trust them. It's a person that you can trust. Or like a waitress in a restaurant, you can trust somebody like that. Yeah, so I think everything's been said really, but yeah, I think awareness needs to be that help is out there. So if you need help, that it is out there, yeah.
Well done, Keely. Yes, awareness. Good key word to finish off with there. And just before I invite the principal and the CEO just to round off this afternoon, I'd like to say thank you once again for some brilliant participation from Flixton High School, also Trafford College, Cheadle Marple College, Aquinas College and Stockport College. Each and every one of you have been a credit to your institutions. Well done, and it's been a real pleasure to chair this panel. You've been absolutely fantastic. Thank you. In the meantime, as I say, I'd like to hand back now to the principal and CEO of the Trafford College Group, Mr. James Scott. Thank you, James.
Thanks very much, Alan. What a fantastic event. I think even surpassing last year's event, if that's at all possible, and notwithstanding, the technological world we find ourselves in, a couple of hitches along the way, but overall I think a fantastic event. And first of all, do give a round of applause to all the panelists who have taken part and all the students for asking questions. I'd like to thank staff, students and governors from across the Trafford College Group, that's Trafford and Stockport College, for taking part in this afternoon's event. And I'd particularly like to thank our friends, as Alan has already done, from Flixton Girls High School, Aquinas, Cheadle Marple Sixth Form College and St Ambrose College. Also a big thank you for UA92, who were originally going to host this event before the current lockdown. So a big thanks to UA92 for taking part as well. A couple of thanks in terms of people who have made the event possible. I'd like to thank Aspire Restaurant and Bar for hosting us and providing the refreshments and the entertainment prior to the event. I'd also like to thank students from our creative arts departments who have been involved in helping to film the event and also doing some interviews prior to the event to get some sort of take from staff across the college about what this means to them and why these events are so important. So a big thank you to those people who have helped make this event possible. There's one member of staff, though, who I'd particularly like to thank, who really brings this together every single year, and it's our very own Michelle McLaughlin, who absolutely works like a Trojan, getting people organised. This year in particular, because of the number of schools and colleges which have taken place, which is fantastic. I think this is the biggest ever event we've done in terms of the different partners who have been involved, and that can only be possible due to Michelle McLaughlin. So thank you, Michelle, so much. Big thank you for Alan for being such a fantastic host, and a big thank you to our panelists once again. And I do like to say You know, students and elected representatives on the panel, you know, you're so busy and now more than ever before. So to give you time for this is fantastic. I'd particularly like to say thank you to Sir Graham Brady, Kate Green and Andy Burnham, because they are great friends of the Trafford College Group. And not only do they partake in events like this, but they regularly come into college and speak to students. Sir Graham Brady comes in and speaks to our politics students. He comes in and speaks to the students on the National Citizen Service programme. He takes a very keen interest in that. Kate Green recently has been in and spoken to colleges and was a great advocate for the Trafford College Group during Colleges Week. And Andy Burnham takes a very keen interest in the Colleges Equalities Council and works with them on the charitable work that they do. So it's not just events like this. These are individuals who work continuously with the college. So a huge thank you to that. And I think what we just need to do is recognise that for politicians and elected representatives of all colours, whether that's regional, national or local, this is a very difficult time. And people are doing their very best under incredibly difficult circumstances. And I personally would like to thank them for all the work they are doing on behalf of England and the United Kingdom during this incredibly difficult time. So thank you so much, and for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Just a final word, if that's okay. It has been my pleasure to host this. Look forward to doing it again sometime in the future. We couldn't do it without the guys at the back there from Fisher AV, who've done an absolutely incredible job. Phil, Paul, Joe and Simon, along with Imran as well, who's helped, and also the tech guys from Trafford College itself. You've been absolutely superb. Can we acknowledge them, please? Thank you. Don't forget, please do. It has been question time. The Trafford College Group are proud to present this event again. Students' question time. Please do carry on tweeting over the weekend, off of your Twitter. The students have been immense. You've done a fantastic job. Thank you for your involvement, your engagement. And remember, it's always about the awareness. Goodbye from the Trafford College Group and from me, Alan Keegan. Take care, and we'll see you soon again.